Welcome everyone to today's session. I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, but thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. I hope you're finding the material and topics valuable. So today we're going to be talking about setting boundaries. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this is your brave space. I want you to feel free to share openly, as this is one of the keys for growth. I have set up some agreements to help us create an environment where everyone feels comfortable in stepping outside of their comfort zone to share with us whatever is coming up. So the first one is embrace discomfort. What I mean by that is when we're learning and we're finding out things about ourselves, so self-discovery, it can bring up some uncomfortable feelings. When this happens, take a moment to reflect on it. Instead of pulling away from it, you may want to disconnect, you may want to stop the video. Instead of doing that, just pause and really think about what is happening inside that may be causing that discomfort. And do it without judgment of yourself, of the situation. Just lean into it so that you can possibly discover valuable insights for your own personal growth. The next one is, let's have some respectful communication. You know, that includes actively listening and communicating with kindness. This will help us foster an environment that's free from judgment. And then the third one is participate with openness. I encourage you to openly contribute, as what you're saying may actually resonate with others and benefit them and their growth as well. So can we all agree that we will uphold this throughout our time together? And any other time that we interact with one another? Type yes in the comments or in the chat to put in your agreement. Thank you. You will also notice that each of our sessions have an intention. And this is because I know that our time is valuable. And so I want to make sure that you're walking away with something that you can implement into your life. I want you to grow just from even being in the one session. Because once we're starting to take even one step forward for our own growth, it's a step forward so that we can become better versions of ourselves. So please, in the comments or in the chat, share your intention for today's session. I would love to hear from you. As far as for me, my intention is for this session to provide you with actionable tools to help you learn to set boundaries, to help your overall well-being. But before we get started, who am I? My name is Ketty Fazazian. I am a wife, I am a mother, and I am a full-time mom to these 3 furry babies, but also a bonus mom. My background is in leadership, specifically in the financial industry, but also in diversity, inclusion, and equity space. A couple of weeks ago, I shared with you guys, if you have been following the videos and the sessions, that I used to be a yes girl. And I don't mean that in the cool yes queen type of way, but more in the yes girl, meaning I'm going to say yes to additional projects that I have no capacity for. Yes to family members that need me to drop everything so that I can go and help them out. And yes to friends that just needed something and I just wanted to say yes because I wanted them to like me, to gain approval, and feel like I wasn't a bad person. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Put it in the chat and in the comments if that resonates with you. So that's because I lacked boundaries. I was the yes girl, wanting to be liked, I was the yes girl to be the one that people can come to, right? Meanwhile, I was feeling drained. So think of boundaries as your superpower. If you had a boundary that you needed to set and this was your superpower, what would that be for you? Again, type it in the comments. I would love to hear that. As for me, my superpower would be the ability to control my time. That way, I don't overcommit. So that's what would happen to me when I was a yes girl. I was busy taking care of whatever anyone else needed, that I struggled to keep up with my personal work and to-do list. I was a yes girl because I thought I was being nice. But come to find out, super interesting, that I was not being nice. I was being a people pleaser. So let's talk about that. Have you ever heard that there's a difference between being nice and being a people pleaser? I hadn't. So being nice actually comes from a genuine place of kindness and respect for others. We're so happy to help others, but also recognize our own limits. And so, therefore, when we're being nice, there's actually a balance. Example of what that looks like or sounds like is telling someone, sure, I can help you for a couple of hours on Saturday. This sets up a boundary so the other person knows what your capacity is. 2 hours on Saturday. So it's pre-planned and you both understand that it's 2 hours. Meanwhile, people pleasing is driven by your desire to be liked or feel worthy, and you want other people's approval, or maybe trying to avoid conflict. When you're people pleasing, you're focused on the other person and ensuring that they're okay. Typically, this leaves you feeling drained, resentful, or even at times unseen. And this is what that might sound like. You might say yes to another work project, knowing that your schedule is already packed and that you're already feeling overwhelmed. Or putting others' needs ahead of your own, even if this leads to stress later on. And that used to happen to me with my own family. And it's not that they were telling me like I need it done now, but sometimes it was like that. Like I would drop everything just so that I could be the good daughter or the good sister. And I would go and take care of whatever it is that they needed, causing me to fall back behind. Excuse me, fall behind on my own things, and rearranging my schedule, causing me stress. Here are other ways that you may be people pleasing: by saying yes when you want to say no, apologizing excessively even when you haven't done anything wrong, going along with things that you don't agree just to avoid conflict and seek approval, and you're seeking validation from others. If any of these resonate with you, please put how many of the four resonate with you. For me, I can honestly say all four of them. I've done them all. And I want you to know that people pleasing actually stems from insecurity. It's due to fear of rejection and wanting, again, that validation, wanting to be liked. And it typically starts off based off of past experiences that made you feel like you could only be loved if you were a certain way, or you were being manipulated into doing things that you weren't particularly okay with, but in order to not get in trouble or to be, again, liked, you went along with it, avoiding conflict. And this possibly could have started as a child. The problem with people pleasing is, again, as I mentioned before, it leaves you exhausted. It can actually lead you to resent people and have a lower sense of self esteem. And this is because you're constantly having to adapt to please others while hiding your true self. And this is an unsustainable behavior. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries are the limits and guidelines that we set up for ourselves to protect our physical, emotional, and mental well being. And this is necessary because it's our responsibility to teach others how to treat us. Whatever we accept is what other people will think is okay and they will continue to do to us. These boundaries are not selfish, they are actually essential for self respect and healthy relationships. There are various boundaries for each aspects of our lives. There's your physical boundary, and it's there to protect your personal space. Just like in the image, it's a circle that we put around us. And it's to protect our physical body, our comfort level of touch, and the proximity of our body. So, examples of how you can set your boundaries: just saying no to unwanted physical contact. So, in the Latino culture, our greetings is a hug and a kiss in the cheek. That's how we greet everybody. But sometimes you don't feel that comfort level, right? So what I do is I offer my hand as a handshake, and just depending on if it's less professional and more casual, like I'll even do like a dab. Um, that seems to be acceptable. Setting limits on how long a guest can stay or expectations on when they can come over. Now I know. For me, if someone doesn't let me know that they're coming over, I'm not going to open my door. And yes, it may seem harsh, rude, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for company. As an introvert, I need to prepare my energy to be surrounded by other people's energies. So I need a few minutes of a heads up. So even if you're down the street and you call me and you're like, I'll be at your house in like 5 minutes. Great. That allows me to prepare my mindset. Okay, I have somebody that's coming. If someone's standing too close to you and they're making you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to speak up and say, "Excuse me, can you move a little further?" Or you can move as well. Remember, you set your boundary. The next boundary we're going to talk about is your emotional boundary. This helps guard our heart by protecting our feelings, our emotional energy, and our mental health. It's okay to say no to those requests that drain us emotionally. You want to limit your contact with people who are consistently negative or draining. It's like you have a conversation with someone and you're like, I'm so tired. And it's because of the negativity, right? Also, choose not to engage in gossip or drama. That takes up a lot of energy. And most of the time, you don't even have control over the situation that's being discussed. So why spend our energy on that? Also, especially women, we are naturally nurtured. So it is not our responsibility for other people's feelings. We are not responsible for other people's feelings, not our spouses, not our kids, not our partners, not our parents, nobody. Every individual is responsible for their own feelings, including ourselves. We are the ones responsible for our feelings. The third type of boundary is the time boundary. Make time for what is truly important to you. In the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, I'm sorry, Stephen Covey gives a great outline. He states to categorize each task based on the urgency and importance. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So the first quadrant is of those urgent items that are also important. These are the crisis. These are while they're crucial and they're coming up right away. So while they're really important, it's also essential to protect your personal time. Prioritize immediate needs while protecting your overall well being. For example, if you have a personal emergency, but also have a deadline at work, it's okay to tell your boss, I understand that the project is critical, but I need to address a family emergency. I'll be back to work as soon as possible. They may not like it, but that's you setting a boundary. Quadrant number 2. This is important but not urgent. These tasks contribute to your long term goals, like career growth, personal development, and relationship building. While they might not be screaming for attention, they are the ones that truly matter. And because they truly matter, you want to schedule dedicated time for these tasks and be sure to protect it. This means saying no to distractions. For myself, I actually wake up extra early so that I can work out, meditate, and journal before the day starts. If I happen to miss it, then I ensure that I make some time later in that day to make up for that lost time in the morning. And I used to work out in the afternoon after work. And the way I had set it up was I had it on my calendar as a meeting. So that way nothing else would take up that time. And I would hold that meeting with myself. You could do the same by adding these non-urgent but important activities on your calendar. So an example could be Tuesday mornings are for professional development. Wednesday evenings are for family time. If it's on the calendar, then you can ensure that nothing else gets added and that it's not going to get pushed back. Because how many times have we done the plan of like, oh yeah, we're going to have to get together, or oh yeah, I'm going to start working out. And you don't actually put it on the calendar. And it's been 2 weeks since you said you were going to start and you haven't. Or with that friend, yeah, let's meet up for lunch. You never set a date. So it's a month later and you still haven't set up a date or gotten together for lunch, right? So you have to put a date to it. You have to put it on the calendar. That way it's set for you. The third quadrant is also urgent, but not important. And these are the distractions. Those are like emails or unexpected interruptions. Unfortunately, these are the tasks that we allow to consume us. These are the ones where it's like, man, I had a long day. I did a lot. But nothing in your to-do list was checked off because there was all these interruptions that came in. So learn to delegate, if possible, automate, or even eliminate wherever possible. If it's at work, evaluate and decline if it's necessary. So an example would be if they call a meeting, they're like, we need everybody to get on a phone call right now, but you're also facing a deadline. Possibly ask the person, is this meeting going to be recorded? Are there going to be notes? Or is there a different time that we can all meet where it makes sense for all of us? This is a way that you can put a boundary around this, since the deadline would be the priority in this situation. Another way to state it is just I appreciate the invitation, but I need to prioritize this deadline. Perhaps we can reschedule for a time that works for both of us. Quadrant number 4, this is not urgent and not important. These are our time wasters. Unfortunately, we spend a lot of time here. These are the things that do not contribute to anything other than just spending time. Social media scrolling, mindless TV watching, and procrastination. So you want to limit your exposure to these by replacing them with productive activities. So perhaps limiting social media instead of who knows how many hours, because I know I get caught up in that, to maybe just 30 minutes a day. And not doing it right before you go to sleep. Instead, possibly reading a book. That will help with that time boundary. In addition, we have the financial boundary. This protects your financial well-being. You want to, some examples of what you can do is create a monthly budget and ensure not to overspend. Also, avoiding lending money that you cannot afford to lose. Statistically, most people do not pay back. So don't agree to something just because you want to be liked, people pleasing, right? Instead, really evaluate, is this something that I'm okay with losing? It's just think of it as a gift, right? Also, saying no to excessive spending requests from others. So sometimes people get really excited, like, oh, it's a graduation or somebody's birthday, someone's engagement. We want to all pitch in for this lavish gift. We want to pitch in for their honeymoon, and everybody needs to pitch in, I don't know, $300. But if that's not within your budget, it's okay to say no to that. Having a clear financial agreement in relationships is also very important. This can be tough, especially if both partners have their own income, because it's like, well, it's my money, my bills are being paid, I'm contributing to the household. Why can't I spend it, right? But perhaps having a boundary where you have a certain amount that you agree on that you will not spend unless talking to the other person. So my spouse and I have this where we have a set amount and we're able to do whatever we want with our money as long as it doesn't reach that limit. If it reaches that limit, then we both need to have that conversation and both need to be in agreement that we're going to purchase the item we want. If we're not in agreement, then it doesn't get purchased. Now, that limit also changes based off of our financial plans at that time. Excuse me. And just like I was talking about our time in quadrant 4, time wasters, digital boundaries are super important. Because raise your hand if you've ever been triggered by anything that you saw online. Raise your other hand if you've been triggered and then you followed the rabbit hole trying to find out more information about that trigger. Yeah. And that could be hours and hours and hours of spending our energy on something that we have no control over. As you want to find peace on that and avoid unnecessary stress, right? That's what we want. We want our well-being. So saving that energy is setting that social, to help us do this is setting social media use time, like putting a time limit on it. Unsubscribe to emails that no longer serve you. How many of us have those emails that is like, oh yeah, I want to attend that. And then all of a sudden now you're getting all of these and you're like, I don't even open them. Right? And then also take a break from your phone and your computer. I mean, most of us work in front of a computer And then we get off work and we get on our phones, and then we get off our phones and we have our TV going. This is just the modern way of living nowadays. So it's important that we disconnect. And whether that's a couple of hours a day or we set a time that we're only going to be on for our personal use, a few hours, whatever that limit looks like, have a balance. Also, don't engage in or avoid engaging on online arguments and negativity because it's so easy when you're just typing that message, right? But is it going to cause extra stress? And do you have control over the full situation? Possibly not. So try to avoid arguments online or even any negativity. And remember, while the internet is there for our information, it can actually backfire when we're consuming too much. And these are just some examples of the types of boundaries that we can set for ourselves. You might resonate with some more than others. The key is to really just identify what areas you feel like your energy is being drained and then set boundaries around that. Or if you feel like one of your boundaries are being crossed, how do you reset that boundary? Once you're aware of this, you can start to set healthy limits. So now that we talked about the different types of boundaries, how do we communicate it? Do we say, excuse me, family and friends, I need everyone to come and sit around. We're going to have a meeting. Imagine. No, we can't do that, right? So boundaries are ongoing thing. And sometimes those boundaries, you're going to have to use them. You're going to have to make the decision on whether you're going to honor those for yourself or not in the situations that are presented to you. Ultimately, you have the full control and you get to decide what's a boundary and what's not a boundary. And you can communicate your boundary by using I statements. And they can sound like, I feel comfortable when. I appreciate you asking, but I'm not comfortable with that. I would prefer. So that way it's coming from you, it's what your needs are, and it's up to the other person to respect them. Be direct and assertive. Stay calm and respectful. If needed, set consequences and practice saying no gracefully. This may sound like, I understand you want me to do this. However, I'm not going to be able to. I have my own limits and I need to respect them. Or, thank you for thinking of me, but I won't be able to. I understand your request, but I do have a different plan. When setting boundaries, you may face pushback, as not everyone's going to understand or even accept you declining them, especially if they're used to always hearing yes from you. They may actually try to guilt trip you or even get angry. Remember, their reaction is about them and not so much you. They may actually be uncomfortable with the change, or they may be used to getting their own way. So, give them time. Again, that's also you being respectful towards their boundaries. Let them think about, what their next step is before trying to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, yes, I could do it." Because then now you're crossing your boundary and now you have become a people pleaser. So don't let their discomfort stop you from your self care. The key to making boundaries stick is consistency. Enforce them even when it's difficult or it feels awkward. Remember to stay firm and calm, and if necessary, repeat your boundary to that person. If you find someone that's consistently disrespecting your boundary, it may actually be time to reevaluate that relationship, because healthy relationships are based on mutual respect. And you deserve to have people in your life that value your well being and can honor your limits. It's not always easy, but sometimes creating that distance or letting go of relationships that drain you is actually a form of self care. So, here are some strategies for maintaining boundaries. Keep in mind that maintaining boundaries, again, is not a one time situation. You need to have regular boundary check ins. You want to decide how frequently you're going to have those check ins and see if your boundaries are still aligned with your needs. Our needs and relationships evolve, and therefore, so should your boundaries. And here are some questions to help you with that. So, where am I feeling drained? It's always starting off with, where's my energy going? Where do I feel that, like, no, I'm not being true to myself? Those are the questions you want to ask yourself. The next is self care is non negotiable. Remember, your self care is non negotiable. Just like when you ride a plane, they tell you to put on your mask before you help others because you need to be okay. If you're not okay, how can you help others? One thing I want you to know is to learn to serve others from your excess, not your cup. You need your cup. It's your excess that is meant for others. So always be working on your well-being, making sure that your cup is full enough that you can give to others. If your energy is low, how are you going to give energy to other people's needs? Right? So just think about that. And then here's another one. Anticipated boundary technique. This is for those times when you know something big is coming, like a holiday, a family reunion, and that certain things about that drain your energy or bother you. So you want to set anticipated boundaries by analyzing what part of the situation stresses you out. Once you figure that out, let's say you feel drained in the situation where you're around too many people, you get overstimulated and it makes you tired. So set a time frame as to how long you're going to be at that place. How husband's the king of that. Wherever we go, and I figured it out. It's 2 hours. 2 hours max is all he can do. So now I know that wherever we go, it's 2 hours. That's his boundary. So if it comes to where a certain topic of conversation is stressing you out, then decide which topics you're not going to engage in. By having this information or this boundary ahead of time, you can avoid unnecessary stress. And here's the last one: change your inner dialogue. If you've been following me, you know that we have that inner critic. So when you first start off with setting boundaries, especially if this is new to you, that inner critic is going to say things like, man, did you see so and so? She was so mad because you didn't want to help her. Am I a bad person because I don't want to help? I'm so used to being there for people. Does this mean I'm not being there for them? All those doubts are going to come flooding when you say no. But remember and remind yourself, my needs are important. I am allowed to set boundaries. And that is just an example to get you started. And it's my needs are more important. and I am allowed to set boundaries. You can use that phrase, or you can use anything else that resonates with you. But it's important to remind that inner critic that your boundaries matter too, and that you don't always have to say yes to people. All right, so now that we have covered how to set boundaries and stop people pleasing, some of the key takeaways that we discuss is that you're worthy of setting boundaries. And it is not selfish to have needs. Recognize that you deserve to protect your time, your energy, and your emotional well being. Embrace boundaries as an act of self respect and self love. Setting boundaries gets easier with practice. It's like learning a new skill. So it might feel awkward at first, but with each no that you say and each limit that you set, you're actually going to gain more confident and feel more empowered. You also have the power to change your relationships. By setting boundaries, you're not only taking care of yourself, you're inviting others to treat you with more respect. This might mean some relationships evolve while others fall away, and that's okay. You deserve to be surrounded by people who value you and your needs. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me today. Let's keep that conversation going through our social platforms. On Instagram, you can find us at She Is Limitless Coach. On Facebook, She Is Limitless. And you can register for our next session on August 7th, where we're going to be discussing building self esteem by going to our website, sheisLimitless.card.co. If you want to do some deep dive work and do personalized work, you can contact me at sheisLimitlessCoach@gmail.com. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are She Is Limitless Coach on YouTube. Until next time, take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.